So I definitely have a lot to talk about. I've had a very interesting week, but I decided I want to start my first video back after the tornado and after a lot of different events happened. I just want to go back to talking about games, right? But I think this weekend I'm going to release a video, one in which not only just describes the experience I had with surviving a tornado, but also really a video I was going to make prior to that where I'm going to put out a warning about a USB Type-C charger I purchased from Amazon that actually ended up destroying 2 switches and a cell phone. And that was really more important to me to get that out to you guys because it's been quite a financial blow to my family. But anyway, let's talk about a game that has probably been in your wish list, and if you pay attention to JP and Good Talk HQ like you should, has been on sale quite a bit. It's a game called Morbid, The Seven Acolytes. Now, this is a great game, and it is typically on sale quite often. And even at full price, honestly, it's a great game. It kind of reminds me a lot of Death's Door, Tunic. It has that sort of action RPG slash Souls-like experience, that more isometric view, if you will. They recently released almost a reinvention of that game, and it's called Morbid, The Lords of Ire. Now, this game is much more traditional Souls-like as far as the camera, as far as the graphics, and even as far as your control over the character. Although, even though it's a reinvention, it still has many of those things that we loved about Morbid. For instance, the main character, Striver, she's back. Also, the insanity meter. And of course, that amazingly yet disturbing environment, along with the creatures to match that energy. Although before I get any further into this video, I just wanted to ask you guys to please hit that like and subscribe button. I also wanted to just shout out everyone who's been sending me well wishes and being thoughtful. I super appreciate it. Sorry I haven't been very interactive. It's been hard with no power, no phone. Those sort of limitations are an issue. Anyway, back to the game. In many ways, it is very much a traditional Souls-like game, where you essentially are kind of on your own, and every time you die, everything respawns. Also, every time you rest, everything respawns. The game itself is tough as nails, and honestly, it has you doing a lot of the same things that we do in these Souls-like games. The main story is essentially the world is going evil, these crazy demon monster creatures, and you gotta take them out. The Lords of Ire, there's 5 of them, and they're all grotesque and incredibly difficult, but there is a difference with this game, and it's the gameplay and the level design that I really love. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually enjoy Souls-like. It's been one of those things that's been very interesting for me personally. As a gamer, I used to hate Souls-like games. I had a friend who would play Dark Souls, and he had like over 1,500 hours in that game, and I really didn't even think you could play more than like 20 or 30 hours. I personally wouldn't play more than 20 or 30 minutes. I just didn't really like it. It was almost like gatekeeping, like, oh, it's just difficult for difficult's sake. And it was a while later that I really started to warm up to that whole Souls-like hype. But the thing that I love about Morbid, The Lords of Ire, is that it does have a lot of those tropes, those same Souls-like tropes, but at the same time, they actually make the game accessible. Now, for one, when you die, you don't lose everything. You keep everything, it's fine. You also keep your experience. So it more resembles kind of a roguelike in that aspect, or at least some roguelikes. I know there's been issues where in a lot of Souls-like, you're really kind of afraid to go much further because you might lose everything, and then you might permanently lose everything, and I don't know, it can be anxiety-inducing, especially if you're not great at these games. And that's one reason why I love this game. You don't really have that fear. You die, it sucks, and that is already your punishment. You don't have to worry about losing experience or losing your equipment, anything of that nature. But the other thing that I really love about the game is the level design. I think it's important to note that in between certain areas, there's going to be checkpoints, and these checkpoints are incredibly important to you because this is where you respawn, and you're also able to heal, upgrade, fill your health potions, things of that nature at these checkpoints. And in between the checkpoints is when I would consider it to be the level or the area. A lot of these areas are pretty wide open, although they are blocked off by some sort of evil aura. Now, to get to the evil aura and to break that barrier, usually it's kind of a pain. There's usually quite a large obstacle you're going to have to take down. But once you do, that aura, that barrier is forever taken down. It doesn't matter if you die, that barrier is still down, and this benefits you greatly. In some aspects, it just allows you to bypass a ton of enemies and get back to where you were when you died, or it allows you to take certain angles on enemies that you weren't able to before. For instance, coming up behind them, doing that stab in the back, almost one-hit kill, all of that becomes more available when those options are there. And I think that adds this other level of accessibility that I think is just super genius, because they didn't make the game easier, they just gave you a different option. And you are opening those as much as you're getting to those checkpoints. Those are just as important throughout the game. Now, I will say the checkpoints are a little bit further stretched out than I would like. I many times found myself just like, oh my god, where is this? Where is this checkpoint? Because there's just, at times, it can seem like forever between those checkpoints. And yeah, when you die, you go back to that original one, and you know you have a large journey ahead of you. But knowing that those barriers, knowing that you're able to bypass certain enemies or take different angles on enemies, that really does just kind of help you keep going forward. It gives you more motivation, because, like I said, to initially take down some of those barriers, it's difficult. You're going to have to face a lot of enemies, and they're going to be right up at you. It's not the easiest thing, but again, that's what I like about this game. It almost helps you get good. Now, there's going to be a number of traditionalists who are not going to like the aspect that you get to keep your experience points and your items, or this idea of the levels being sectioned off so it can help you on your second, third, fourth run. There's going to be some people who have an issue with that, and for them, I would say, okay, cool, well, go play your really hard game that has no accessibility. I'm going to continue to play this game, and then feel comfortable playing that really difficult game, because I'm going to build up my skills. And honestly, I have the utmost confidence in telling almost anyone you can play this game. There are certain games that I don't really feel that way. If you're a person who doesn't like Souls-like or just not good at them, and you ask me, hey, should I get Demon Souls or Bloodborne? I would say, probably not. They're incredibly fun experiences, but they're gonna kick your butt. This one, I have full confidence that almost most people can get through it. It's going to give you some problems, it's going to be kind of difficult, but that reward is going to be there for you. And it's not going to be so far that you're not going to be able to achieve it. And that's really one of the things I really like about this game. But that's not the only thing that I would say is great about this game. Also, I love the different equipment. I love the runes. So you can have multiple weapons and put different runes on them, which affect your damage, your speed, your agility, and your impact. And it's cool to have this like different playstyle per weapon. And I did that quite often with my character, where sometimes I would just really want speed. So I would go with like the knuckles, which are really fast, but they don't hit as hard. Or there's certain enemies that you want to be able to make a gigantic impact on. So you go with more of like the traditional two-handed type weapon. Now, ultimately, I will say that this game does suffer from one major issue, and that is performance. Also graphics. Now listen, this game isn't hideous or anything, it's just not great all the time, and the environment doesn't help because it's very snowy, and that is one of those things that's really hard to do, especially if you have issues with texture, and the Switch often does. And so to be able to really pull that off, it doesn't look great all the time. And there's even times when like that insanity meter goes off, and that's really when you can tell a dip in graphics, as your character kind of becomes pixelated a little bit along the edges. You can definitely know it on her hair, but ultimately though, the game is not hideous. It looks pretty good, especially for the Switch. The performance though is where I think a number of people are going to have an issue, and I do think that it does need some sort of stability patch, because many times you can make this game sort of lag a little bit. You can tell there's a drop in frame pacing. It doesn't affect the gameplay, I don't think. It's hard to say, because again, the game's hard, so you can blame anything for that, but I never noticed it being an issue in combat and being one of those things that I could easily pinpoint and say, that's the problem, this is why I died, because of the frame pacing, because the game dropped, and blah blah blah. No, I wouldn't say that, but I would definitely say that you can tell. Like, many times if you just spin the camera around or you move really quick, you will notice that frame rate drop. And for me, that's like the only thing that I dislike about this game or I think needs to be improved. But ultimately, when we will get a stability patch, and I'm sure we will, this game will easily go up to an 8.5 out of 10. Although right now, without that patch, it's a 7 out of 10. It is still a great game. I absolutely love it, and honestly, I'm becoming a big fan of the series. But ultimately, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Have you checked this game out? Are you a fan of the series? Is it something that you are unaware of? Anything and everything in that comment section below is much appreciated. I love each and every one of you guys. And again, I have to say this. I apologize if I haven't been as talkative or interactive with you. It's definitely been a situation where I've just been prioritizing phone battery. But now that we got power, we got internet, I'm back, baby. But anyway, I really super appreciate all of you. You guys are amazing. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.